Kia ora and welcome back to Pick Up the Pace podcast. You're with Magic and Anaru. Today we have Stacey Fluhler on the show. She is on Rūātoki and plays for Waikato in the Farah Palmer Cup. She has played 10 games for the Black Ferns and 51 games for the Black Ferns Sevens. She has won a Rugby World Cup, a Commonwealth Games gold medal, and a Sevens Rugby World Cup, and she is only 24 years old. She's also just released a new book, Stacey Fluhler, World Champion Rugby Player.
Thank you for that intro.
Reira, e te uri o ngā tamariki o te kohu no ngai tūhoi. Tūhoi, momo kai, momo taonga, momo tangata ki te pō. Ka papa ki ngā tai o mihi ki a koe e te tuahine me tō whānau. Ko koe te wahine toa o ngā kapa whutuporo o Aotearoa. He tino waimari e māua ki te kōrero ki a koe I te rānei o te rā nau mai. And welcome to the Pick Up the Pace podcast, Stacey Fluhler.
Wow. Hello.
So we hear you're back into training and you're into your second round of club rugby, but you've got your foot elevated there.
I do, sadly. We had a fun game of touch at training and just tried to step and stood in the wrong place. So I'll be back in a couple of weeks' time. It's all good.
Nice one. Hey, so you're from Rūātoki and in the heart of Tūhoi. So those who are listening, can you let them know exactly where Rūātoki is and what your whānau links are to that area?
Yeah, Rūātoki is a beautiful place. It's a very small town. You literally drive to the end of the road and there's a river and bush. You can't go any further. It's about 25 minutes south of Whakatane in the Bay of Plenty. Dad's family is massive from back there in Tūhoi. He's got about 16 siblings. So got a few cousins back there, but very grateful to grow up in a small community, beautiful whenua, beautiful land, and yeah, love that place.
So we just want to acknowledge your whānau for a moment, just as you were talking about your dad there. So your mum, Raewyn, your dad, Simon, sister Shannon, and brothers Bodine and Bronson. Can you just tell us a little bit more about your whānau and about each of them? Yeah,
well, I'm the baby of the family. As you mentioned before, I'm 24. Bo is a couple years older than me, 26. And my two other older siblings, Bronson, just turned 30 and my older sister's 31. We're a very competitive family. Growing up with each other, we taught each other, I guess, a lot of lessons. We're a very sporty family. Mum and Dad played a lot of sport too growing up. So very grateful we inherited those sporting genes. Dad played a lot of rugby. I guess that's where that rugby gene came from. And Mum did gymnastics, athletics, a lot softball growing up. So yeah, we're a very tight family. And I actually spoke last night on another talk saying that my family are my biggest supporters, but they're also my biggest critics. You know, they keep me grounded and humble. If I'm having a good tournament or a good game, it's not about that. It's about the mistakes I've made on the field just to make me better, you know. So yeah, I love my whānau, and wherever I am in the world, I'm very grateful for technology because we get to stay in touch with one another.
Your father, Simon Waaka, played against the All Blacks and he was picked to play at halfback for Victoria Invitational 15 in 1992. Considering he played for Victoria and your whānau spent quite a lot of time in Australia, so did you grow up there when you were young, and did you obviously headed back to New Zealand? And tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, Dad, he always taught, he never lives it down, eh? Like his favourite memory is he stopped Zinzan Brook from scoring a try. He always tells everyone that this is one of his favourite rugby memories, playing for Victoria. Yeah, I'm quite lucky. I think I'm the chosen one in terms of I was the only sibling born in New Zealand. So Mum and Dad were kind of backwards and forwards a little bit from Aussie. And I was born here when I was 1, made the move back to Australia, and grew up in Melbourne until I was 8 years old, I think it was. Mum and Dad spent about 20 plus years of their life there. So yeah, huge connection to that part of Australia, and lots of whānau back there. Been there a couple of times, you know, just to see our roots and our where we grew up there. But yeah, Dad has very fond memories of playing rugby in Melbourne and for Victoria.
So at what point did you move back home to New Zealand? Because I heard you came back on a whānau Christmas trip and you didn't want to go back home again.
Yeah, me and Bo, we used to come back every Christmas to spend time with our nan back here in Rūātoki. And I think one year we just didn't want to go back. We were crying, saying, no, like we want to live here. We love it here. You know, just all this land, the horses, the animals, all our cousins. Because, you know, as a Māori whānau, everyone is always at home. There's just like multiple people, and it's cool, you know, having those memories and those connections. So yeah, I think mum and dad thought, well, they've been in Aussie long enough, it's time to move back home, and luckily they did. And yeah, I'm glad they did, because love growing up here in New Zealand.
Hey, I'm growing up in Rūātoki with a big Māori population. Was Māoritanga a big part of your life there? And can you speak to reo Māori, and how close are you to your extended whānau?
I've learnt a lot. So obviously moving from Aussie to New Zealand, we stood out like a sore thumb. Like we were these little white kids with accents, Aussie accents, going to these Māori schools. And I'm going to be honest, we used to get picked on. Like, you know, go back to your country kind of thing, not knowing we were actually full-blooded Māori. So yeah, that was quite tough. But then we played sport and we're pretty talented. So that kind of saved us, and everyone started to like us again. But yeah, I haven't really learnt it properly, te reo Māori, over the years, but just growing up in the community, it's very, you know, Māori orientated back then. Everyone speaks it. I have picked it up. I do understand more than I talk, but it is a goal and a dream of mine to one day to learn it fully and be able to conversate with people in te reo Māori. Because yeah, like you said, in Rūātoki, there's lots of Māori spoken, so I think I should, you know, get there one day.
Hey, so when you were 16 years old, you were a touch youth international and a promising netball player, but you were involved in a terrible bus accident. So do you just want to let us know a little bit more about that accident and how it sort of changed your life as you grew up?
Yeah, well, as a 15-year-old making the New Zealand touch team, that was amazing. And it was very expensive, but mum and dad did all they could to, you know, help fund it. Lots of fundraisers and raffles and whatnot, because essentially their kid was wearing the fern for the first time. So that was a cool experience. And yep, wanted to be a silver fern, played lots of netball, played up the ranks, up Bay of Plenty provincial stuff. And then the crash happened when I was 15 in 2011. Remember it vividly. I was one of the oldest on the bus. Truck hit us from behind. We kind of rolled into the nearby farm, and I woke up after blacking out, just like on top of quite a few kids. They're obviously really scared. Traumatic experience. Try to help them out, and I was injured at the time, and I didn't actually know. I was too busy. I guess the adrenaline kind of kicked in, and I was too worried about trying to get everyone out of the bus. It was actually my little nephew, my cousin's son, told me, Auntie, you're bleeding. And I kind of looked down at my legs, and I had 2 deep gashes, just flesh kind of coming out and blood pissing out of my body. I was to never know. And my mum and them arrived at the scene, and I was kind of crying and hugging her, not knowing whether I'd be able to play sport again. So yeah, as a kid, you know, that's quite tough, because sport is what helped us, is what makes us happy. It's a fun way to socialize with friends. And so yeah, I did manage to crawl over that hurdle, and 3 months later I was back out playing touch, playing netball and everything I could, luckily.
Hey, you attended Whakatane High School, and despite the bus accident, you were captain of the school's rugby, touch and netball teams. And your final year, you were awarded Best All-Round Girl, Best All-Round Māori and Sportswoman of the Year. With achievements like this, who were your role models and mentors as a teenager growing up?
I had a few. My mum and dad have always been, or my family in general, but 2 that kind of really stand out to me. One was because I wanted to be a silver fern. Maria Tutaia was one of them. I played goal attack, you know, wanted to be like her. She kind of had that Indigenous gene in her too. So yeah, she was an awesome player. I did so many assignments on her. And a second one was actually my form teacher at Whakatane High School, Pete Barsdale. I guess he watched me throughout primary and he seen the talent that I had. So he kind of picked up on that and helped me right throughout. And it was just lucky enough that he became my form teacher. Good timing. He always had the right advice. I know when he was a kid growing up, he represented New Zealand in about 4 or 5 different sports. So I guess he wanted to mentor the younger ones coming through, and I was lucky enough to be one of those people. So he kept me on my toes and he made sure I was going in the right direction, and he just always had the right thing to say. So very grateful for, you know, those people in my life.
You made your debut for Waikato in 2014, and then a year later, you made your debut for the Black Ferns as a 19-year-old against Canada. We ask all of our guests this. What was it like in the lead up to your first test? How were the nerves? What do you remember most about your first test in that black jersey?
Well, you's actually interviewed Honey, obviously recently, and she was a big part of that kind of debut tournament. So she was in the team. She had been in for a couple of years, and it was my first time. We got along really well, and she helped me. She mentored me in the sport. Going over to Canada, first time, I remember watching the Black Ferns in 2014, their trial match, because it was their World Cup that year. And yep, I debuted for Waikato, new as like to women's rugby, playing provincial stuff. And I thought, man, it'd be so cool, you know, to be there. A year later, it happened, and I was like, whoa, I did not expect it. But when it did, got named in the team, went over to Canada. I remember the running out, singing the national anthem, bawling my eyes out, just being very proud of that everything had paid off, the hard work, the sacrifices, the challenges, everything that I had put in. It was down to that one first moment of receiving my jersey, and to get the start, that was even better, you know, first time wearing it, and I was able to play a whole game. So yeah, very emotional, but also a lot of joy and excitement. I remember that tour.
In 2016, you made your debut for the Black Ferns Sevens team. So while traveling around the world for your first Sevens circuit, what were some of the highlights on and off the field that you experienced on the circuit?
Biggest highlight for me was Sevens. Off the field was everything was free. Like the food, the clothes, the travel. And I remember we got upgraded into business for my one of my first tours. So that was pretty cool, like flying business class overseas. On the field, just being around girls who are legends of the game and constantly learning from them. I debuted 15s first, and I played a lot more 15s than I had sevens. So I was still kind of new around my debut, but there's so many things I could explain about traveling the world and being a Black Fern for 15s and sevens. But those are a few highlights.
In 2017, you were part of the Black Ferns 15s team that won the Rugby World Cup in Ireland, beating England 41-32 in a very entertaining final. Can you talk us through that match, especially that second half, because you were down at half time, and your feelings and emotions when that final whistle went?
For me, I think I was the youngest starting in that final, so already I was nervous. Most of England and half of our Black Ferns girls had already played World Cup finals before. So yeah, I try to not think too much of it, and because I was still kind of new and no one really knew me, I think I had that advantage. There was no pressure on me to perform well or anything. It was just go out there, have fun, and do your thing. And one moment that stands out for me was when I went down. It's about 61 minutes. My calves started cramping, and it was like they started electrocuting themselves. It was super sore, and I was like, no, I don't want to go off. So I got injured. It was so embarrassing. I had to get buggied off. But after that, I was just so nervous because I couldn't watch the girls, and it was such a tight match, like, you know, backwards and forwards. We never knew who was going to win. especially being down at halftime. But from that halftime talk, I remember GM, our coach, he never doubted us. He was very specific with his words in terms of what we needed to do to be better in the second half. And I think that just goes to show that when coaches see that we're down and they still have so much faith in us to come back, then yeah, that's the cool thing about our team is, you know, there's no point in getting angry and upset. It's more about what we can do to get better. So yeah, those are what I can remember from the final.
In 2018, you were part of the Black Ferns Sevens team that won a Commonwealth Games gold medal and a Sevens Rugby World Cup at San Francisco. What made that Black Ferns team so successful? And what are some of the special moments that you had throughout both those tournaments in the Gold Coast and San Francisco?
Just the culture and the connection we have amongst our sisters. No one knows what was happening behind the scenes in the lead up to Com Games. We had so much adversity to face. So it fueled the fire and the hunger to want to win even more because we had reason to, or more reason to, I guess. The memories, just traveling, playing in Australia on their home turf and winning that game. I'm not sure if you guys watched it, but it was pretty crazy. And to win in overtime like that was pretty cool. One thing I do want to mention that you probably don't know too is we actually trained for so many different scenarios leading into Com Games. So we trained to play in extra time. So when we're doing team trainings, we played 3 halves instead of just 2 halves, if that makes sense. And it happened. We also trained with the intention if we got a yellow card or 2 yellow cards, and both of them happened. In Commonwealth Games, it was kind of crazy. Like, we had practiced it and we knew exactly the game plan and what we were going to do. Obviously, you can't predict what's going to happen, but because we were planned, we were sweet. So yeah, that's probably a cool memory from Commonwealth Games. And San Fran, wow, that city is absolutely beautiful. To go over to America, grow the game over there, because the women's game in America has grown so much. You know, the international side has been playing some really, really good footy. And to win gold again, the feeling is unreal. And we had a lot of supporters over there, Kiwi supporters. So I guess that helped the motivation and the energy levels when we were playing in the final. Yeah.
You mentioned Hani Hireme before, talking about how much of a role model she is to you. Who else have been role models to you in the rugby world over the years during your career?
Oh, there's so many. I've been blessed with lots of good coaches, so they've helped me love the game too. There's no better way than playing rugby and having that confidence that your coaches support you 100%. Another person is probably Sarah, well, Hidden now, was Goss. The one thing with me and Sarah, we're quite similar people, we've found out over the years since I've become friends with her, and she's an awesome person, leader, player. Her work ethic, her achievements speak for itself really, and she's just such a down-to-earth and humble person. Skills that the traits that Honey has too, and that's why I get along with them quite well. They both were nominated to speak at my wedding actually, because they know quite a few things about me. So there's some funny stories that came out. But yeah, those are probably a few. I guess I have to mention my older brother. He's been a big inspiration to me. We're quite close, and he's been that person, the mentor, the male mentor that I've always kind of needed. He knows rugby, and just his personality, to be able to connect with me and tell me the things I'm doing right and wrong, but in such a positive way. So yeah, he's been a big help in my career too.
And with the Rugby World Cup being held here in New Zealand next year, how important was it for the Farah Palmer Cup to go ahead? You know, we've had the COVID-19 and to get the women's competition up and running to build into next year.
It's super important. I know the women's game here has grown so much over the past 5 to 10 years, and to have that exposure at home on home turf, it's it's really cool for young girls who want to become Black Ferns one day to see it live at home, because we play a lot of tests around the world and we don't get the opportunity to play at home. But I don't think people realise the importance of having a home crowd. Even for Sevens this year, playing at home for the first time, the motivation levels you gain, you know, from the energy from the crowd, it just takes our game personally to a whole nother level. So to have, for us girls, since there's no international tests coming up, to be exposed to Farah Palmer Cup, all Black Ferns Sevens, all Black Ferns 15s have that opportunity. It's pretty cool for women's rugby, you know. It's where it all started for us, right at the grassroots, community rugby, playing club, playing provincial stuff to get to where we are. So for us to give back and go back to the provinces and the places that helped us get us to where we are today is awesome.
So you've almost clocked international rugby. You've won a Rugby World Cup, a Sevens World Cup, and a Commonwealth Games gold medal. So what's next on the list for you, Stacey?
There's the biggest one yet to come, obviously, the Olympics. I'm pretty shattered about the news that it has been postponed. And yeah, kind of talks that it can potentially be cancelled next year, which sucks. But I remember being in the squad 2016 when the girls went to Rio, and just to hear the experience that they had, it made me work super hard behind the scenes and want to be there. So that's definitely a big part of my goals for rugby, is to go to the Olympic Games. I mean, it'd be pretty cool to play more World Cups and Commonwealth Games though. So yeah, we'll see where it goes and if my body allows it.
So how does that work next year? You've got a Rugby World Cup, and then obviously the Olympics will be on the same year. Do you have to choose one or the other, or can you get away with both? Or how does that work?
We're hoping not, and I know that the Sevens and 15s coaches have good relationships, so they've been in talks and they're hoping it can work. There are 7 weeks, I think, in between the two tournaments. So whoever, I guess, the coaches want to choose for both, if the opportunity comes, man, we're going to jump at it. Of course, we just love playing rugby, and representing your country in both would be an honour, really. So yeah, we have to wait and see if we're allowed to play both.
You got married to Ricky Fluhler last summer, and can you tell us a bit more about him, how you met, and how you support each other with such busy lifestyles?
Yeah, we actually met at a bar here in Hamilton, shenanigans. Remember, we did, you know, he was out with friends, I was out with friends, and it kind of just happened. So yeah, we have a lot in common. We have similar values, and he's been a rugby player right through, a sporting player really, right throughout, and so have I. So that was the biggest connection. He was a big supporter of rugby, which is cool, you know. Being a women's rugby player is not for everyone, you know, to be in that kind of relationship. So yeah, he helps me, he trains with me. It's so not fair because I train every day and he doesn't, and he's still fitter than me. It doesn't make sense. But just grateful for his support, and he does attend some of our pinnacle events. I mean, there's nothing much more you can have than a supportive husband or wife, you know, helping you and challenging you too to become a better player and person at the same time.
Finally, Stacey, can you tell us a little bit more about your new book?
Yes, my new book. Actually, I did the interview for it in December last year. So it was getting written by David Riley. He's the author, over Christmas, kind of New Year's, and it was ready to be published by February. But it was pretty easy, and for me, in terms of sharing my story. One of the most challenging parts for finding high resolution photos, you know, when you kind of blow them up, it loses the res. So that was hard, but it was ready by Feb, which is really cool. It's supposed to be here by April. Obviously got delayed because of lockdown, but there's 2 reasons why I agreed to doing the book. One of them was because I thought it's a cool stepping stone for me to writing my own autobiography one day. And a second part why I really wanted to do it was because one of my big values in life is to inspire, and for me to be able to share my story and connect with younger children coming through to help them achieve their goals and dreams in life, I think that that's really cool for me. And it was, young kids don't really like reading sometimes, and there's statistics that show Māori Pacifica kids, they dislike it, but when they have stories that they can kind of relate to and see people or role models from small towns or, doing big things on the world stage, then it can be quite relatable for them. So yeah, those are a big part of my motivation to do it, to accept it, and it's happened. It's a surreal feeling. And when the books arrived and now I'm selling them on my website and in person, I would love to do a book tour, go around to schools around New Zealand just to share my story, connect with the younger kids and help them learn to love to read. So yeah,
where can we get a copy of your book? Where can people get a copy of your book?
Yeah, at the moment it's only just on my website, so www.staceyfluhler.com. But I'm still tossing up whether to sell them in shops and stuff yet. We'll see how things go. But otherwise, yeah, that's where you can buy it online.
Awesome. Great work, Stacey. Hey, before we wrap up here, it's been an awesome podcast. We've got a bit of a challenge for you. We do it with all our guests every week.
Okay.
So what we're going to do is, it's called 9 and 10. So we're going to give you one topic, and in 10 seconds, you have to give us 9 answers. So for example, if we said, name for me 9 different types of takeaway outlets, you'll say KFC, McDonald's, Pizza Hut, Domino's.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very. Okay.
You got to be quick on your feet, eh, Stacey?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm a planner though. I'm not really quick on my feet. We'll see how this goes.
Here we go. We'll just get the timer out. We'll get the, here we go, bro.
10 seconds.
10 seconds.
We'll give you a topic.
Oh, wow.
9 answers from you.
And it's an easy topic. You'll nail it. I'm sure you will. All right, here we go. Stacey Fluhler from Rūātoki. Name for me in 10 seconds 9 Olympic sports. Go.
Oh my gosh, rugby sevens, athletics, basketball, hockey, surfing, I'm stumped, gymnastics, diving. Oh, damn it. Damn.
You started off with a hiss and a roar.
I know. Oh no, damn it.
We got you at 7. We got you at 7. Too short. Never mind.
That's right. You haven't been.
I'm gonna think of every single sport now. When I go to bed.
100 meter, 200 meter, 400 meter.
Yeah.
It always comes afterwards, eh? Oh no.
Oh, it's all good.
Hey, thank you so much, Stacey. Thanks for spending the time with us today. You're an inspiration to all. It's amazing considering how young you are, how much you've achieved in the game of rugby, and also the work you do off the field with young people, and also all the best with your book. Hopefully, and it will inspire a whole bunch of other young ones coming through the ranks as well. So ngā mihi nui kia koe, me tō whānau, mā te wā.
Thank you very much for having me.
Kia ora,
Ka kite.
Ka kite.